Recording.
Where is that?
That's where things change all the time. Like record is supposed to be here and it's not here. The thing right in the back.
There, no.
There it is. They just change
There
things
we
all
go.
the time.
Right. Good.
They do Judi Dench there.
Okay, guess we're live then. So it is 4:40 p.m. on October 17th. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting of the Westland Sustainability Advisory Board to order. Our first item on the agenda is time for public comment. Don't believe we have anyone from the public to offer comments, so I'll just move on to the next item here. We have Grace here from Parametrics, who's here to talk about the Westland Sustainable Westland Strategic Plan, what they've been able to glean from that, and just have a conversation about their thoughts on that document and what we might be able to prioritize in it, and so we can go from there. So welcome, thank you for coming to join us today.
Do you think we should have at least brief introductions?
That would make a lot of sense.
Right.
So I'm Michael Carlson, one of the co-chairs of the SAB. Been on the board, I think, for 3 years now.
I'm Victoria Meyer, the other co-chair. I don't know how many years, maybe 6. I've been on the board.
Greg Smith, previous co-chair. I've been on for about 5 years.
Oh, then I've been on longer. I don't know.
And I'm Bill Bigby, assistant to the city manager and the staff liaison. Kate. Oh, can't hear you, Kate.
My name is Kate Jaspers, and I guess I've been on the committee a little over a year.
And we are supposed to have at least one more joining us.
Yeah, Tiffany Haley, unfortunately, is not here, and we have a 6th member of the board, Dan Reeser, who had taken a 6-month leave of absence from the board for cancer treatment. So he is looking forward to rejoining us in January.
Okay, Grace, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, absolutely. Can you hear me okay?
Now we can, yes, thank you.
Okay, excellent. My name is Grace Thurkel. I work with Parametrics as a climate and sustainability consultant. Parametrics was formerly Good Company, and I did prepare a couple of brief slides to go through kind of an overview of what we're doing and where we are and some of what we're thinking, if that would be okay with you to pull up.
Yeah, certainly.
Okay, great. And I can hear you all okay. The video is a little bit laggy, so I apologize.
Yeah, I was
if
going to
there's
say
any
your video
confusion,
bandwidth is
with
not
the video.
working. Yeah. Hopefully the sharing works.
All right, let me give it a go, and I can try turning off video if I need to. It seems like I have a strong signal here, so not sure what's going on there. But let me go ahead and pull this up. Are you all able to see that?
No.
Nothing yet.
Okay, well, let me try again.
Oh, now we can.
There it is.
Okay, great. I guess it just took a moment. All right. So like I said, my name is Grace, and then my colleague Tracy, unfortunately, is not able to be here tonight. She had a family medical issue come up last minute, but we will both be joining for future meetings. And like I said, Parametrics, our team was for. Yeah, go ahead.
I think someone was just acknowledging that they had heard what you said.
Can you make your slides bigger though? Like a full screen slide?
Yes, I'm not sure what you all are seeing.
We're seeing the slide with like the preview on the side, the previous slide. So it's
Okay,
pretty
how is
small.
that? I have it in full screen now on my end.
There's a lag, so we'll see here in a minute.
That's a long leg.
Nothing yet. It doesn't appear to have changed.
Do you have two monitors?
I just have one right now.
Okay, I was wondering if it was
Let
showing.
me see. One.
Well,
Dylan, I think you can maximize the view of
I can make it
first
bigger,
screen as
but yeah.
well.
But still.
Oh, that's good.
See the preview thing.
That's
How about
helpful.
that?
We're still seeing the same. I mean, we can read it. We're just seeing like all your notes and all your preview slides on the side.
That's okay.
It's visible though.
Yeah, it'll work, I think.
Yeah,
Okay,
yes.
awesome. Thank you
Good.
all.
Yeah, you got it.
So I just wanted to
I
go
can-
over our scope of work.
Uh-oh.
Sorry, I can still hear you while I'm
We're
sharing.
losing you, Grace.
Don't worry, you're the star. They can't start without you. I would never been like.
Let me try switching to a different Wi-Fi. I'll be right back.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Welcome, Lou.
How you doing?
We're waiting for Grace from Parametrics to begin her presentation about their review of the sustainability plan.
Okay. I may have to break out at a certain point. Just check my
Okay.
calendar.
Oh, and Tiffany is on now too. Great.
Hiya.
Hi, Tiffany.
How are you
Grace,
guys?
the other two people are Lou Groner, who is the city council contact with the Sustainability Advisory Board, and then Tiffany Haley, who is another one of our members.
Excellent. Thank you. And it looks like I've got a better signal now, so hopefully this will be a little bit easier.
Great, excellent.
It sounds clear.
Okay, perfect. Glad to hear it. Okay, so I'll go ahead and I'll just start at the beginning since we had a couple tech issues and now everybody's on board. I'll try going full screen again, but hopefully it looks a little bit better on your end. So I was just going to go over our scope of work as the consultants on this project. So our first task is to review the City of West Linn sustainability plans and existing goals. And we have compiled all of those goals and strategies into kind of a spreadsheet to start looking at how we can start to prioritize and streamline those goals. And I'll get a little bit into that over the next couple of slides. But right now we have about 70 different goals and strategies and actions that we're looking at. And then our plan is to recommend a smaller number of kind of most realistic, feasible, high impact actions that could be taken to advance goals around sustainability and climate action. And we also have some time available to research and recommend grants or other potential sources of project funding that West Linn could realistically qualify for, and to assist or advise with grant writing. And of course, to meet and collaborate with all of you on the Sustainability Advisory Board. So our current status, we've just had a couple of meetings with Dylan and West Linn so far, and we're conducting the initial screening of the actions and strategies from that Sustainable West Linn strategic plan, as well as we've seen some of the documents and your previous annual reports from the SAB and the initial kickoff meeting that we had. And we're kind of taking a first look to see where are there opportunities to expand or enhance existing programs and operations, and what are some of those initial cost or staff capacity needed for implementation, because we know that that's going to be a constraint. And so those are the kind of first things that we're looking at and reviewing that list. And I did want to go through a couple slides that might be totally background info for some of you all, but just thinking about some key terms and categories as we're doing our review. So sustainability is the umbrella term that we're looking at with all of the actions that we're reviewing. And then we have a couple of further categories that we're looking at related to climate action. So greenhouse gas mitigation are actions or strategies aimed at reducing or removing greenhouse gas emissions to slow climate change. So that would be something
Great.
like electric. Yep.
I don't think we are seeing the same slides that you are presenting right now on our end. Oh, it just jumped over.
Okay, I cannot do full screen mode. Sorry about that. You didn't miss a whole lot. I was just talking through these previous slides, but I will pick it back up here. Thanks for your patience. So some examples of greenhouse gas mitigation actions or strategies would be things like electric vehicle chargers or switching over from gas to electric equipment, installing more energy efficient heating and cooling, etc. And I think you all have a lot of actions along those lines on your list and the documents that I've seen so far. Resilience and adaptation are measures to help the community, and we like to think about this in terms of people, infrastructure, and natural systems to withstand and recover from current and future impacts of climate change. So this is looking at, as we're seeing more increased heat or drought or changes in precipitation, what are some of the things that West Linn could do that would help people be more comfortable and more resilient as conditions are changing? And then ecosystem health are the efforts to maintain and improve the functioning of biodiversity and natural environments. So before I go on, I'll just pause there and see if anyone has any questions or thoughts about these kind of overall buckets that we're talking about.
Seems sensible to me.
Yeah, certainly the things we've been working on.
Yep, excellent. And again, I saw actions and strategies that fall into all of these buckets as we were reviewing, and this is just one way to start to kind of categorize and think about how we might want to focus efforts. And then
And it's
next
useful
up,
to have it. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, you're welcome to go ahead as well. We've got plenty of time.
I was just going to say that it's very helpful to have it broken down into a smaller set of main action items. So this is really helpful.
Yeah.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. And I know the sustainability umbrella in particular can be very broad and kind of include a lot of different things. And so hopefully this can help us as we start to filter and refine, because I know it's important to have that priority list of what are we going to do next, and then what's the next priority, and have a starting point. So hopefully this can help with that. And then next up, I wanted to talk a little bit about potential roles and responsibilities. And this is something that we often do with community climate action plans or similar work, where we think about what are the roles that the community or the city could play. And I think for you all, it's really thinking about what is the role that the SAB would have and what is the role that the city would have, or both of those groups together. And this could be another way of kind of filtering or sorting through that long list of actions to try and think about your roles and what makes the most sense. So the implementer or implementing is an action or strategy where either the SAB and or the city would take the full lead and has direct control and possesses or can acquire the resources to make progress. Convening is an action or strategy where the SAB and or the city needs external partners to complete the action, but could help by convening those partners. And I think this is a place where I would note that perhaps the SAB's role is to convene and the city's role is to implement in some cases, and perhaps in other cases those roles are flipped. And maybe there's some cases where they're the same. And then finally, we have support and advocate, and that's an action or strategy where the SAB and our city primarily supports and advocates for it, but lacks direct control over the activities needed. And I think these are helpful frameworks to think about just in terms of marking progress and making sure that we're prioritizing some strategies or actions that you all do have direct control or are able to help move along in implementation, because I know a lot of things are going to require city council support or additional funding sources or additional partners. So it's just thinking about keeping that in mind in terms of who's required and what kind of process is required to move things forward. Any comments or questions about that?
Nope.
All right.
I guess the one question I would have is like whether where education fits into this particular this set of roles and responsibilities.
That's a great question. I think education can certainly fit within each of these areas, but it could also be its own fourth kind of bullet point. And I think the education actions, they tend to be a little bit, it's something that lots of folks have control over. Like you all have a lot of ability to go out and do education, but then it's up to the people that are being educated to actually take it forward and follow up and do their part. And so I think it could fit underneath these parts of, if you're advocating for something, there's some education that goes along with it, and same with convening or implementing. But I think we could also think of that as a fourth separate kind of category to look at. Sorry if that wasn't helpful. I know I said either or, but I think thinking of it as a fourth category would probably be the best.
Okay, thanks.
So this is the next kind of thing that we're looking at after this meeting for our team, is to further review the list of actions and strategies and look at some of these additional factors that we'll be using to kind of assess how feasible and how big the potential impact could be. So some of those other factors are whether or not we believe or are aware of any funding or finance mechanisms that could help implement alignment with the council goals, the city's role and the SAB's role, and whether or not there's capacity to implement something or to move something forward. Examples from peer communities of what has been successful. And then the specific climate mitigation and adaptation factors are, what is the potential for greenhouse gas reduction, and what are some of those other resiliency and adaptation benefits? And we could certainly put the kind of ecosystem health in there as well, as we're looking at those different categories. So this is the process that we typically use when we're looking at kind of a broad range of actions or strategies, as we try and figure out what are the factors that are important to the community that we're working with, that we can then start to filter those actions or strategies to see what's rising to the top as potential low-hanging fruit. So this is kind of our first list of those filters that we might consider, but we'd be curious to hear from you all too if there are other factors or filters that you think are really important as we're looking to prioritize and as you all are prioritizing.
Grace?
Yes.
This is
Yeah.
Victoria. I'm wondering if these slides will be available after the meeting.
Absolutely. Yes, I'll send them
Good.
along to Dylan if that works for you all.
That'd be very nice.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely.
Napkin hand cramps. Great.
Okay, so that is our plan for our next step, but now I want to take some time to hear from you all and hopefully have some discussion that can help with both our review of actions, but also, as I know you all are doing some goal setting and annual planning. So I'm hoping that we can have some discussion about each of these questions of what are the current priorities of the SAB, how we can support you in shaping those annual goals and setting achievable targets, and looking at the resources and skills that you all already have so that we can align your skills and resources with those potential low-hanging fruit actions and strategies. So I just have a couple more slides to kind of go through those discussions, but if you all are open to it, I'd love to start here and just hear from each of you about current priorities of the SAB and what's rising to the surface for you all.
Sure. Maybe a good place to start with that is to highlight that we every year put basically a list of goals together. It tends to be our October meeting where we set those goals and really prepare to put a report together for the council for the coming year. This past year, some of the things that we've tried to prioritize, I guess first was getting a sustainability consultant on board. So we're
Amen.
happy you're here.
Mhm.
Very happy.
Yep.
Thank
But
you.
also, we've also been trying to get the city council to prioritize updating the tree code for the community. There are just a handful of things that we would like the tree code to reflect, just to make it a little bit, I don't want to use the word challenging to remove trees, but to make the management of that canopy resource done in a little bit more thoughtful manner, and to incentivize the preservation of the canopy when people are making development decisions. The code update has been placed on the planning docket, but the planning docket doesn't necessarily mean that it, as a revision, is going to be taken up. It just means it's kind of available to be taken up. And I think it does require direction from the council to get that to actually be prioritized and worked on. So I think that's something that we would like to see more movement on. We've done work in making recommendations to that code update, but I don't remember when it was placed on the planning docket, but it's just kind of languished there
Mhm.
since that decision was made. So I think we'd like to see that prioritized in the planning docket, particularly in light of Oregon, was it HB 2001?
Yeah.
We're expecting to see more infill development, which we think poses a risk to existing tree canopy, and we'd like that canopy to be preserved.
For example, 5 trees in a development close to my own home have been taken down in the last 6 months. And some substantial trees there that didn't necessarily have to be removed. So
So I think that's one major item.
Right.
We've also wanted to see more electric vehicle charging infrastructure deployed across the city. At the moment, Westland has one charging station with 2 connectors on it, and that's at City Hall. But there's not a single public charger elsewhere in the community. We know that the city's applied for grants for chargers. I don't know if we know the status of those grants or if you've got an update
We
for
do,
it.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, good.
We are getting 2 additional locations. I'm not sure how many per,
Okay.
but we are getting one. We got a grant for one at the library, and then we got a grant for one down on Historic Main Street.
Great.
And then while we're on the topic, the mayor and I are also setting up meetings with some of the big commercial developers around
Mhm.
town
Awesome.
to kind of see where they're at on it. We have looked at like the one here, that owns, I think it's RIC. They have like big, sustainability plan, and part of their plan, their business goals is EV charging. So we're hoping that they're gonna, we can work together somehow.
Yeah. Wonderful.
So that's
Yeah.
happening.
Mhm.
I feel like there was one other EV charging thing. Oh, the planning department is putting through their climate friendly equitable community, CFPE, code, the state law and everything. And one of those goals, I understand, is EV charging.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure exactly how that goal works and how it develops, but that's another avenue.
Yeah.
where
Fantastic.
there's-
Good.
So there is a lot of movement on that.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's
Good.
encouraging.
Yep.
Yeah.
Happy to hear that.
Just treaded water for so many years.
I think another item that's come up is to try to shift the use of leaf blowers from gas powered to electric. We know that the city council is not likely to want to be very heavy handed about that, and that there needs to be probably a phased approach to this, starting with just general education for the public, and then incentives and so forth. But yeah, getting people to stop using gas powered leaf blowers, I think, is all something that we want to see.
Yeah, and I've been a member of the Lake Oswego Sustainability Network's Advocacy Committee, and they've had some serious conversations just about how to grapple with that issue, and I think are really looking at a similar approach with regard to public education and providing lots of information about transitioning to electrical landscaping tools.
Mhm.
Thing on my mind is the wetlands area off Fifth Avenue, Fifth Avenue, Fifth Street.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah, Greg, You live right in the middle of that.
Right,
Can you
yeah.
speak to that more? But
Sure. There's a sizable wetlands that actually had been part of Blue Heron Paper Company. They had suckling ponds there, and the property has been purchased by a man named Bob Schwartz, and he is kind of planning a significant development, including 52 townhouses on a hillside just above that wetland. And there's been a lot of neighborhood concern about the impact that that would have on wildlife in that area, as well as the integrity of the wetlands themselves. And so I think we're interested in trying to figure out how we might be able to participate in that conversation. And actually, I've got a meeting scheduled with Mr. Schultz tomorrow, just to explore alternative design possibilities for that property. And just kind of looking at ways in which rather than kind of resisting development altogether, really looking at ways in which the development could be handled in a manner that would both meet his, financial interests in that property, but also do what could be done to make the property, make the development as aesthetically pleasing to the neighbors as possible, and also as protective of that environment as possible as well. So I think that that's something that we're really interested in trying to participate in, and either as an individual, which is how I'm going to that meeting tomorrow, as well as a sustainability advisory board.
yeah,
Maybe one of the things that I could mention that was actually adopted last year as a resolution by the city council was an effort to really seriously look at alternatives to fossil fuel powered appliances, furnaces, and vehicles moving forward, so that when the technology is really feasible and affordable, that the city will make a serious effort to kind of go towards an electric alternative when that choice is available. So that was one of our accomplishments, just a small thing in terms of kind of really trying to address reductions in greenhouse gas. Another thing that happened last year was that the city adopted a decision to basically monitor energy use and other resource uses in the city and post them for the city. So on the city website, so that it's possible to actually kind of look to data as a means for determining to what degree the city is actually kind of approaching its greenhouse gas reduction goals.
But to my knowledge, the city never did adopt anything regarding that.
Oh, it
We had
did
a
adopt.
discussion about how we would like to see that, but I don't know of any action.
That they actually did, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in 2022, using public records requests, I gathered all of the data for the city's energy use in terms of electricity, natural gas, and transportation fuels, and then used that to create kind of like a 3-year baseline for carbon emissions and energy use. And one of the goals in the Sustainable Westland Strategic Plan is a greenhouse gas reduction, and so we needed a baseline against which those reductions would be measured. And our hope was that the city could kind of take the baton from there and continue to do that kind of monitoring and to make it publicly available.
So it seems like that would be an important goal moving forward.
Yeah, I would like to see that. And
Yeah, I think it's still on the list of things to do.
Yeah.
Long list of to do.
Sure. And I don't want to phrase it in a way that makes me think, oh, y'all don't care, and you're not trying to do it. But
I did talk about this specific issue with Grace the other day.
Okay.
And we were trying to brainstorm a little bit like how that works and the outcomes and so I don't know if you have any more to say on that, Grace, but it did come up as a topic.
Yeah, I'm happy to share a little bit just from our kind of perspective, as a lot of our work is greenhouse gas inventories and accounting and working with communities to understand their emissions and then create climate action plans. And I think while we really appreciate and do a lot of work around the data collection and that accountability transparency piece, we also believe there are probably a lot of kind of lower hanging fruit areas that West Linn could take action on now without
Yeah.
taking a lot of time to do that. And not to say it's not important, just recognizing that, you know, is a limit or constraint to the amount of resources the city has in particular for these efforts. And I think there's probably some lower hanging fruit options that, just based on the size of West Linn and comparable communities and the types of actions that are happening, we probably know what the main sources of emissions are going to be. And you've named them right there around building energy and transportation fuels. And so perhaps we could just get right into what are some of the emission reduction potential opportunities. And then once a little bit more capacity and ideally funding is built up, put a little bit more emphasis on that recurring tracking and comparing to baseline. So not to say it's not really important and valuable. We think it could be beneficial to kind of get right into some of the lower hanging fruit and try and build capacity and funding along the way. But of course, open to all of your feedback on that.
Before we do, about 10 minutes ago, I saw that Lou had raised a hand, and I don't see that anymore.
Yes, basically my comment was already made, so I don't want to take up time.
Okay, thanks. I would say one of the other topics that we've been exploring for the last 2 or 3 years is just the possibility of having the refuse service pick up food scraps. That kind of remains kind of in limbo as well. But it is one of the things that has come up from members of the public as well as other members of the Sustainability Advisory Board at different times. So that is one piece that has been a kind of an ongoing theme over the years.
Yeah, thanks, Greg, for bringing that up, because that's always one on my mind. Another one, my audio isn't great, so I'm sorry if someone already talked about this, but was the I know we've talked about this before, is keeping an eye on the waterfront, what they're doing with the property and renovation down there, and making sure that that's as sustainable as possible, knowing that like that's time sensitive, right? Like if they make those changes and it's not done in a sustainable way, it's not going to be easy to go back later.
Right. And Kate, I am on that waterfront working group.
That's
So
right. Okay. Yeah.
I
Great.
try to bring those issues up as best I can, but it's I'm one voice among many.
Yeah.
We've also had discussions about just increasing the walkability and bikeability of the city, with specific focus, I believe, on safe routes to school. I think Kate and Dan have been particularly interested in that.
And I was happy to see your attention to resilience, which is another one of the things that we have been exploring, and was one of our goals that was only kind of minimally addressed last year, although I think through our encouragement, the local food pantry was able to apply for a state grant to buy additional, well, actually, it was going to be a power generator so that their freezers and refrigerators would not go down in the case of an ice storm.
Did they get it?
I don't know whether they got it, but they applied for it. Yeah, they applied for it.
I applied for the generator at the adult community center, and I don't know if I told you guys. I did not.
Oh, you did not get that. So I'll check with the food pantry to see whether they got theirs as well.
But on the topic of food pantry, we did get a grant. I remember where it was from, but it's a sizable grant, and I think a lot of it is going to go to the food pantry. Food
Oh,
pantry
good.
gets
Yeah.
significant funding.
Great.
Yeah. So.
And I know
Quick
one of the
comment
things that I've been looking. Oh, excuse me.
Go ahead, Lou.
Quick comment on safe routes to school. One of the things that might be useful is basically some sort of scoreboard of what fraction of students walk to school. And people could, for example, claim that they had walked, for example, 20 days out of the month, and maybe get some sort of award or gold star or whatever. Make that claim and see if we can make progress toward getting more students walking to school.
You know, Lou, I've seen that done in Boulder, Colorado. My grandchildren were so tickled to get Lucky Bucks, which they could take to a local store and spend.
Yeah, good reward, good incentive.
Yeah, incentives. So I think that would be a good way that we could potentially collaborate with the school district on that particular issue.
Yeah, and the local businesses that would be willing to support that.
Yeah. So if you have examples of places where that has been done in Oregon, it would be great to know.
Okay. Yeah, excellent. I'm hearing a lot of ideas from you all, and this is great context. And I think going back to that slide about kind of greenhouse gas mitigation and resiliency adaptation and ecosystem services, I'm hearing kind of ideas or priorities across all three of those areas. So I think I'm curious to hear from you all if it would be helpful for us to do any of that kind of filtering or further analysis of these priority areas to try and give our professional judgment on what is the kind of overall impact or level of scale that we think some of these different priorities could have. Or if it would be more helpful to focus really on what the city itself can be doing, and you all as the SAB can have, parallel priorities and actions that will complement what the city is doing. And I guess that's a question for you all as well as for you, Dylan.
I think I had always imagined that the reason to hire the sustainability consultant was to advise the city primarily.
Yeah.
Because they're really the ones that have levers to pull. We're an advisory committee, and we're here to support the council and their goals and advise. But yeah, I think that city should take priority.
Yeah, and I think that the greatest value for us would be in kind of looking at that plan and giving us guidance about what you see as the most significant recommendations that we could be making. And as well as, assisting the city in terms of thinking about how to fund the kind of high priority items that you would then identify. But I think your assistance in helping us actually become more politically effective in terms of actually trying to give feet to what I think is a pretty good sustainability plan. But that has plan that has by and large not been actually extensively implemented. And so I guess the big question is how to implement a good plan.
Okay, absolutely. That's really helpful. And I think in thinking about that, we, like I said, have our next step is planning on going back through all of those actions and strategies from the plan and doing some of that further kind of analysis and review to try and see what we think is going to rise to the top in terms of feasibility and impact and what's realistic to get started with. And I think we could think about, for those places, focusing on where the city could be the implementer, and then what role the Sustainability Advisory Board can play in terms of advocating or convening or playing those supportive roles to continue to forward those efforts and make progress. So I think that's how I'm thinking about it, but would love to hear if you have further thoughts or ideas.
Yeah.
And that
In
is
a
actually
way,
a great Oh yeah, go ahead.
Just very quickly, in a way, I think what we have been hoping that the city would eventually be able to do is hire a sustainability coordinator. And there's just not the money to be able to do that. But in a sense, what we see the consultant being able to do is lay out those strategies that could be adopted absent a sustainability coordinator. But if a sustainability coordinator were in fact hired, this would kind of give them a roadmap to pursue to, potentially be as effective as possible within the first few years that they have taken on that responsibility.
Yeah, that sounds excellent and aligned with kind of what we're thinking, and particularly that focus or priority around thinking about existing funding opportunities or setting up some funding opportunities that could hopefully build momentum and build additional capacity, because we know we're starting with kind of where the city is currently at, but trying to work towards increasing the funding and capacity available.
Excellent.
So that is a perfect segue into my last slide here, which is that we thought it would be great to do a little bit of brainstorming around this kind of skills and resources that you all as a sustainability advisory board already have, so that as we're thinking about what's most feasible for the city, we could see if there are particular skills or resources that you all as individuals could help provide and align with those opportunities for the city to provide some additional capacity. So what I'm thinking is we could do a little brainstorming here today, and these are some examples on the slide, and then perhaps send a very brief follow-up survey just to ask each of you kind of what of these skills you might already have and any additional skills, so that we can be thinking about that as we're thinking about what's feasible for the city.
And are you thinking about our skills or the skills that are possessed by city staff? The
I'm
folks who
thinking
can
specific.
actually work and make this stuff happen.
Well, for this exercise, I'm thinking specifically about the skills of you all as sustainability advisory board members. I think we're working directly with Dylan and kind of aware of what capacity the city does have and what those constraints are. But we're going to be looking at where are there opportunities that the city could do more with the support of the board. I know you all have already accomplished a lot together over the many years. So just thinking about where are there more opportunities for you all to provide kind of a supportive role to help the city do more than it could do without your assistance.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Like how best can the board be leveraged to help the city?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So these, again, are just some examples of potential kind of skill or focus areas that you all might already have or might be interested in. And if you're open to kind of brainstorming, thinking about other particular skills that you all have, maybe it's around grant writing or the public outreach, working with and meeting with business owners, thinking about some of the data tracking or looking at metrics for tracking progress, or if there's other things that come to mind, I think we could do a really, like I said, brief follow-up survey just to get a kind of quick idea of what resources the city might be able to tap into in partnership with you all.
I know Tiffany has a background in communications, and so we have had conversations over the last couple of meetings about trying to find ways to be able to kind of educate the public about electrified landscaping tools, for example, and moving away from gas-powered leaf blowers. So I think that, the advocacy communication piece is something that we can definitely kind of plug into and are looking to plug into in moving forward, particularly with that one initiative.
Yeah, that's something I'd be keen to, get on board with, Grace, and figure out how that we can be more effective there with your guidance.
Right. And we've also drawn on the skills of Dan Reeser, who is a lawyer and had a background in environmental law, as we've been kind of looking at, ways in which other municipalities around the state have dealt with the leaf blower question.
So that I'm fairly familiar with data analysis and tracking on sustainability metrics. I've done some graduate level coursework on sustainability, and I also am a Oregon master naturalist. So I'm pretty keen on preserving natural areas and habitats, and fairly familiar with what's there and what that involves.
What's the title? Naturalist?
Oregon master naturalist.
Master.
Well, I think they revised it now, so it's just Oregon naturalist.
Mm-hmm.
But I think my little name tag when they make it for me will say master naturalist.
And Victoria, if she doesn't speak up for herself, is the person who coordinates the community garden program.
Thank you.
And so she has extensive experience in working with kind of community volunteer efforts as well. So I think that's an important piece.
Thank you, Greg. I do it as such a matter of fact, I forget it's something I do.
And like in terms of writing, I was a university professor, wrote extensively about place in community-based education. So the advocacy piece comes kind of more naturally to me as well, in terms of a skill base.
Kate,
Excellent.
is there anything you
Well, yeah, go ahead.
we still have Kate?
Kate, are you still there? She's there, yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm here. I can hear you. I think I'm lagged pretty good. And I would say I
Okay.
add interest and enthusiasm.
You
Uh,
sure do.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm a stay-at-home parent. My background was in I was a professor before that, and just a lot of interest in seeing our city do better with our sustainability.
Can you think of ways that your work in psychology could contribute to these kinds of efforts?
I'll think about that.
Um,
Awesome. Well, it's great to hear from you all. And it sounds like there's a lot of varied experience and perspectives in the room. And I think there's a lot that we can leverage and kind of partner with the city's efforts to try and be as effective as possible, knowing that there's a lot of important goals and priorities. So I think with that in mind, we might send out just a really brief follow-up kind of survey to ask those questions. And then I think we're hoping by the time we come back to meet with you all again, we'll have kind of a prioritized list of maybe 10 or 15 things that we think are that make the most sense for the city to start with and prioritize based on those kind of filters or criteria we spoke about earlier. And then would love to get your input on that and think more about kind of alignment. So that's roughly where we're planning to head with this. Of course, subject to more feedback from you all and from Dylan and the city.
I have one more. Truly, one of the things that gets me fired up is restoration and preserving native plants. So the business of the wetlands down in Fifth Street is pretty important to me, and also EV stations. But since we're getting a handle on that, I don't think it's a necessarily a priority right now.
Well, just in terms of funding as it relates to the restoration question, I think one of the real challenges that the city faces is what to do with two sizable holding ponds that have dioxins in them. That it's estimated that it will cost $15 million to clean them up. And so in terms of really preserving that particular wetlands, being able to find external funding to support that cleanup will be really important.
Yeah.
And so I would say help with that particular question would be really valuable as well.
And one thing I might say with respect to the skill set of the board too is that we do have a vacancy on the board, and it's after you administer these surveys to us, if you see any obvious holes in the skill set that the board has, that might be helpful to us in terms of thinking about trying to recruit another member.
Nice thinking.
Yeah.
I might mention that my background is computer engineering. And I did march in the Earth Day 1970. So long history.
Go Lou.
Wonderful.
And I guess I would be interested in what you anticipate with regard to timing, because like our goals will be clarified, for the 2025 goals will be clarified at our November meeting. And so we'll be having a kind of an additional conversation about those goals after you've had a chance to leave. But I would like to, potentially use your ideas at that time if we could. So we meet the third Thursday of every month.
Yes. So you'll be finalizing goals at that next meeting. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, we'll be brainstorming ideas this evening and then trying to finalize the draft of those that we'll submit to the council at our November meeting.
Greg, go.
Okay.
Yep. I think in terms of timing, we can absolutely plan to share kind of some initial summarized results with you all before that next meeting. I think we are planning to put together kind of a brief technical memo that's describing our recommendations and providing a couple of peer examples. I'm not sure we'll have that fully finalized before the November meeting, but I think we can definitely provide a list of those 10 or 15 areas for the city that we think make the most sense as low-hanging fruit or high priority areas.
Thank you.
And
Yeah,
we're
we
meeting
can work with that.
yeah, we're meeting with Dylan again on Monday, so we can hash out the timeline a little bit. But I think that's very reasonable, and we'd like to support you all and provide our assistance as efficiently and quickly as possible so that you all can keep moving along.
Thank you. And if there is any need to reach out to us, there is an email address that gets every member of the board.
Right.
You may have that already, but if not, I'm sure Dylan can get you that.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Good. Well, this has been very, very helpful. And so glad that we've had a chance to meet with you. And although it's virtual, it's been great to have you in the room.
Yes, thank you for joining us. And
Yeah.
our best wishes to your colleague.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear that she had an emergency to attend to, and hope everything is all right.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's wonderful to meet you all as well, and looking forward to hearing some of the notes from your conversation when we meet with Dylan next week. And we're looking forward to the next time we get to meet with you all.
Great.
I want to thank you again for just making it, being who you are, doing what you do, and being here, because we have wanted this for so long.
Well, thank you so much. It's truly our pleasure. It's what we do, and we love to do it. And it's a pleasure to work with communities in Oregon in particular. Tracy's based out of Portland, and I'm based in Eugene. So we certainly love it.
Great.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank
Have a
Great to
good
meet you.
evening.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Excellent. Any internal comments on that before we go to the next agenda item?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to depart. So thank you.
Well, thank you for being here,
Yeah.
Lou.
Appreciate you joining
I'm
us.
glad you got to hear what she had to say.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was useful. Good.
Excellent.
Take care.
Thank you.
So long, Lou. See you down at the garden walk. Go.
Okay. Yeah, if there's nothing else on that conversation, then we can jump to the approval of the minutes from June and August. Everyone had an opportunity to look over those. Any comments?
Yeah, sure. I move the. Can I move? If I'm
You sure can.
let's. Do we have to do one at a time?
I'm fine approving them in bulk.
Minutes from June and August meetings.
All right, I second that. All in favor?
I
All right, the meeting minutes.
Aye.
Thank you.
Got it, you're right. Yeah.
Got it, right.
Excellent. All right, the meeting minutes from June and August are approved.
Unanimous.
Unanimous.
All right, next up is member check-ins. I guess I'll just jump in and go first. My wife and I have been very busy procuring and arranging plants, native plants, in our yard. I think we're targeting planting about 500 to 600 square feet.
How exciting.
Yeah, a lot of ferns. We like ferns. My wife particularly loves the ferns, so got quite a few of those. But then evergreen huckleberries, which I'm excited about. I tried huckleberry ice cream for the first time at the coast like a couple months back. Like, I've been missing this. So I'm excited about those. But yes, we're trying to get everything in pretty quickly here because the rains are starting up and this is the time to plant.
Not during the meeting, but another time. I've got some advice for how to plant those huckleberries.
They're already in.
It's not too late for what you need to do.
Okay, I'd be happy to hear that. And yeah, otherwise it was a very productive year in the garden. I think we got another like 40 to 60 pounds of pears. I made pear sauce right there.
Aw.
Wow. That's a
quite a
lot of
bit.
pear sauce.
So I'm sorry for those of you who cannot join and have the pear sauce. It's pretty good.
As well as the pumpkin chocolate chip cookie.
Yeah, these are pumpkin chocolate chip cookies right there.
I want one now.
I'm not going to stop you. They might still be a little cold, and we made them on Saturday. We all
They're
were free.
stored in there.
Those can be kind of tricky. I'd go for a corner.
You're doing the opposite. Yeah.
Kind of cakey in texture.
Okay.
But yeah,
You want one? You want one?
Sure.
dessert first.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's all for me.
Mm, okay.
All right, so Greg and Victoria are chewing, so somebody.
Talk with my mouth full.
Have at it.
All right.
I
I'm
can
seconding
update.
thing.
Or,
Kate, go for
go
it.
ahead. Oh, sorry.
It's community garden time for me, and I have spent 90% of my waking hours working on getting the gardeners and garden put together for the winter. I'm fine.
The eyebrows tell me that you're being entirely truthful.
I'm still chewing, so Kate or Tiffany.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I can go. Yeah, I've been busy with my family. I'm trying to help my parents as they deal with some health challenges, and that's been challenging. We had a really good garden this year. We got some pretty good pumpkins. We got like our biggest pumpkin was like as big as a basketball, which we've never had any luck growing pumpkins. We had tons of tiny ones. Yeah, had a pretty good end of summer and fall.
Excellent.
Awesome. I'll go next. I'm kind of the same with Kate. I've been a lot of family stuff happening right now. I do have elderly parents that have varying degrees of health care and just care in general that's needed that we've been working through. I'm really excited to hear that everybody has all these gardens because my goal for next season is to have a front yard garden of all things. So I'd be really interested to see what you all are growing and how it's going so that I can get some tips from you all and do a good job next season.
Wonderful.
I ended up planting dahlias in a front yard garden where we had tomatoes. And I've never had dahlias be as big or as prolific as they have been this year. So that's been a real delight. So if you haven't planted dahlias before, they're a flower that really gives back. The other thing that I've been doing
up in the winter. You have to dig them up in the winter.
sometimes I'm going to try to not do that. But the other thing that's been happening is that I've been
dahlias one year.
is that we needed to replace a fence on one side of our yard, which actually borders 3 different families. And so I've been building fences with 2 of the folks, the neighbors. And in this instance, building fences has really kind of brought us together in a way that counters the oftentimes thought about. But oftentimes, like we haven't really, because of the fence, haven't spent a lot of time with one another over the years. But it's been really a wonderful thing just to get to kind of do physical labor with neighbors in that way. So it's been very pleasing. Yeah, it's really been fun to do.
Local community building.
Yeah, definitely community building.
Excellent.
Great.
I'm trying to think what else, busy with kids as always, the 6 kids at home, it keeps us busy. Been trying to paint the house. I finally got all the paint off my hands, trying to paint in between when it's not raining, trying to get that done before winter comes in. And busy with the multiple jobs here always. We had an interesting council meeting on Monday. It was Indigenous Peoples Day, and we had a special guest from Grand Ronde Tribe, Mr. Dietrich Peters, and he gave a really beautiful education speech and then flute playing that just kind of stopped the room. So you might watch that.
Oh yeah,
It's a
for sure.
meeting,
Right.
which was really good. Other than that, I can jump right into the next things on here. If you'd like.
Yes, that's fine by me.
The first question was about the Fifth Street wetlands, which we already touched on, and the attorney did respond. I think I sent that to everyone.
Yeah.
To respond.
Yeah.
which is generally not a good idea to do that as a group. There were some problems with giving recommendations to the group and in the relationship with council and everything. But everyone's welcome as individuals to testify and act on. I know there's a group in the neighborhood that's forming, and welcome to do that as an individual, but as a group, to the party.
Question about that.
Yeah.
When I spoke with Dan Reeser a week and a half ago or so, he was really interested in whether or not it would be appropriate for the Sustainability Advisory Board to point out different aspects of the Sustainability Advisory Plan or the Sustainability Plan that really touched upon questions related to that particular development. And, just indicating that not necessarily taking a position one way or another, but just reminding, both the city council as well as, other organizations, city organizations or commissions that are involved in those kinds of decisions, that these are aspects of, the plan that were approved by the city council in the past.
I get we do have a new attorney now. I mean, it'd be another question for them.
To ask him, okay.
To her. Yeah.
Oh, her now.
Yeah.
The new attorney, right.
Kaylee is her name.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. You want what's her name? Kaylee Klein, new attorney.
Yeah.
Is it Keelan or Caitlin?
Kaylee.
Kaylee.
Klein.
Yeah, she's really good, but she is massively overwhelmed with the volume of things that she's getting started and getting going and trying to get things cleaned up and representing us a little better than we were in the past. It's been really good. But,
So it might make sense if Dan felt so inclined just to send her an email.
I was going to say somebody could put something in an email.
Yeah, and
maybe
just
send it
ask
to
about
me
that
and I
question.
can ask
Yeah.
her about
Okay.
it. Yeah, I mean, my initial thought on it is, that, development. We have the sustainability plan, but developments have to adhere to the community development code.
Rather
So if there's
than,
aspects of the sustainability plan, that are, and that's where I'm thinking of it more from like a policy.
yeah,
Like if you take that and make it into the policy, which is the CDC, the community development code, that's what applies to all these developments. So you can say those things in the sustainability plan.
If it's not in the CDC.
But if it's not in the CDC, it's not enforceable.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we do have a lot of plans that are like that.
Yeah.
But if they're not in that development code,
Right.
you can't legally
Yeah.
apply them.
Yeah.
That's the development. So yeah, that's my initial thought. But
No, that's useful.
Yeah.
I'll feed that back to Dan and then suggest that he write to Kaylee
Yeah.
if he has the energy to do so.
Okay. Tree code, I don't know. I mean, I think you guys have pretty good understanding where that's at. I don't know. And I think this was kind of my question is what next? It's just been unprioritized. I don't think council and planning commission have got together for a while. I could look at the tentative agenda.
Is it council that changes the priority?
Yeah.
Okay, so we would
They
need
have
them.
joint meetings and that's where they change the priorities. And they haven't had them for a while, I could see. And that could be something where you could lobby them as right before that meeting. Might be the way to do that.
Lobby council or the planning council?
Council.
Yeah.
And the planning commission.
Yeah.
Both. I mean, they both have distribution email.
So we could sound
Yeah,
like.
joint meeting with, well, November
November
18th, they have a joint meeting with the planning commission.
November 18th, okay.
But I don't know if that it says for that HPS, which I think is the housing production strategy.
Okay.
So it might be like narrowly focused. They might not necessarily
Okay.
be looking at the planning docket, but they do that occasionally, yeah. So but they might do the same meeting. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Is there anything else? I'm not sure what else to do with the tree code. I know.
Yeah, I think we just need to lobby council and the
Okay.
planning
Yeah,
commission to change the priority.
Yeah.
Because
And,
all I've
I-
ever told is it's a significant amount of work and.
And we did a lot of work to figure out that like the initial impression about why it would be a lot of work was unfounded. There was this concern over goal 5 and like this community survey work and all that. And it turns out that just like, that's not true. And so they don't need to worry about that. There is the work of revising the code itself, but we've also, we've taken code snippets from Milwaukee that we believe in to some degree can just be like borrowed and used. Yeah. So our hope is that it is way less effort than the initial impressions might have suggested.
I've been talking with both Mark Gamba and the woman who's the city manager in Milwaukee.
Mhm.
They said that there was no problem in trying to basically introduce that.
Mhm.
Although I felt, they also felt that it was important to kind of engage in some degree of community education and educating the city council about those changes as well.
Mhm.
But both of them said that goal 5 was not a problem.
Okay, so if what we need to do is educate members of the city council, that doesn't seem too hard to do one-on-one with the information that we just spoke of.
Well, I did meet with both Mary and Rory last spring
Low-hanging fruit.
around these issues. Yeah.
Yeah,
And so it's, we've been trying to reach out.
yeah. Is
to-
there anybody
to
else
do
we
that.
need to reach out to? Carol Brick,
Maybe a strategy is to like meet up with all of them again and try to do that within a narrow window so that
Yeah.
you're just getting
Yeah.
this like consistent message to each of them, and
Yeah.
maybe that will spur conversation among them.
And I don't fully understand the different codes and the goal 5 thing. I mean, it's not my area of expertise.
Yeah.
But the only bit of feedback I got was that Milwaukee does have this code, but it was something related to it like a requirement versus an incentive or something, like Milwaukee maybe.
No,
has one
it
where-
is an incentive. So
Yeah.
it,
And that's what makes it not a goal 5 thing. Does that sound
Yeah.
familiar?
I think primarily, yeah.
I think so.
No, I think that it's
Well,
not.
no, it's not. the
It's not a
only-
goal 5 thing because the resource under consideration for protection is not a goal 5 resource.
Mhm.
So goal 5 applies to certain
Just
categories of natural
resources, yeah.
and historical resources. But trees on people's private property is just not under that umbrella at all.
Mhm.
If we were talking about like the park or the wetlands or things like that, and the city wanted to revise the code to make those places less protected, yes, goal 5. But goal 5 is there to protect resources and doesn't say a lot in terms of like adding protections being an issue.
Mike, that was really clear.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah.
Succinct.
Because I think our primary concern was infill. Exactly what's happening down on 9th Street.
Mhm.
And that there was nothing that was going to protect those trees. And both in terms of just as development happens, that there are boundaries placed upon around the trees so that the root structures are not damaged
Mhm.
to the development process. And that there's really an effort to make sure that when trees are taken down, the extent of the canopy that had existed before they were taken down, that there was enough land to be able to allow trees in the future to re-establish themselves so that that canopy would not be lost.
Mhm.
And so I think what's in the Milwaukee Code is really aimed at trying to maintain the integrity of the current canopy. And it didn't necessarily require an assessment of the entire canopy of the city as an entirety.
Yeah. I mean, so I guess like the action here still is a lobby the city council,
Mhm.
right?
All right.
Yeah.
That's still the action.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's some sort of argument you want to make in writing to council. I mean, I don't know what action you guys want to take to get there, or if you want to meet with them, or I mean.
Well, both Mike and I have spoken with them a few times. And
Mhm.
so I think
Refresh
we
the
kind of
interest.
laid out the argument and the fact that what Milwaukee is doing is really sensible,
Mhm.
and that it really ought to be examined in a thoughtful way by both city staff and the city council.
Yeah, I just don't know. And sometimes the writing just for me, like if you do the writing and argument in writing, the council, and then it gives the planning staff an ability to be like, okay, this is true. This is,
Okay.
okay, we can do. I don't know. I'm looking at it.
Okay.
So it doesn't just keep spinning.
Yeah,
right?
there's
So you
too many
think-
parties here for it to just be like, verbal conversations.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Documenting things is going to help.
So you're saying, put the argument in writing to the council.
That's my suggestion.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, great.
I mean, like I said, I don't really fully understand
Yeah.
We can,
any of this.
Okay.
and we can go take a look at, Dan's prepared a presentation, at one of our
Or
meetings.
did
Right, yeah.
Has somebody talked to the planning manager about this? And that would be another route. He's
Well,
the one
well-
that's educated on the topic, and I am
And
not.
planning manager Darren.
Darren, yeah.
Yeah, I've talked to Darren about it, but Darren was always the one who basically said impossible because of goal 5.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, let's.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess that's
talk to
the
the end.
difference of opinion put it in writing and
Yeah.
council have to decide, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dan took a look at it and like,
Uh-huh.
did his, legal analysis and
Yeah.
told us what the Oregon land use planning scheme is,
Yeah,
narrowed it
I
down
mean,
to
it's compelling enough.
Yeah. So let's,
So two action plans, talk to the city manager and lobby the council in writing.
Well, I think, yeah, mostly just the in writing thing, right?
yeah, it seems like lobbying and writing.
And perhaps before that November 18th meeting in case,
Before
and I can maybe
November
ask
18th.
if that planning doc is gonna come up.
Okay. So maybe we can surface that piece that Dan had given us.
Yeah.
And kind of use it, and you and I could conceivably try to write that document, that argument in the letter.
Put it on one page.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Grants for EV chargers. I think I said everything about EV
Yep.
chargers already. And then the social media stuff we talked about before. And I did talk to, I know Tiffany wanted to connect with our communications people who they're in the middle of a bunch of policy things, the new attorney, like social media policy and communication policy. And they were wanting to get further down that road because they do get lots of competing requests for
Space.
and they're trying to be equitable. And so they kind of were like, can we pause on this until we get further direction
Okay.
or further policy? But in the meantime, if there's something where we can do some education, a paragraph on something that's coming up, I think if somebody just wants to send that to me and then I can
Okay.
be like, can we fit this in the next couple weeks or something like that? I think that's still an option.
And how often is the printed newsletter going out?
Printed newsletters
Quarterly.
just twice a year.
Just twice a year.
Oh,
Okay.
Okay.
Uh,
It just came out last week.
Came out, yeah.
Yeah.
Haven't gotten it.
Yeah.
Bigger edition of time.
Yeah.
So
And then, but weekly e-newsletters and social media,
Yeah.
and all that stuff.
There's a lot of empty space. Well, there's a lot of space that's used for photographs in the newsletter as it currently exists.
Mm-hmm.
So who is making decisions from the communications standpoint about like like text versus photographs?
I'm our two communication. We really only have one communications person,
Yeah.
and then their boss.
Because I looked at it at lunch today and it was like, there are a lot of photographs here.
Yeah,
And the photographs are very nice, but they take up a lot of space
yeah.
that could otherwise be used to basically share information.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a standard thing, right? But it's today's people are video and photo centric.
Gotta
Right?
capture
Well,
people's
no, I
You
attention.
try to capture. You're always trying to get people's attention, like
Yeah.
especially on social media. People see text and often just scroll
Yeah.
by. So if you get too text heavy, it's also a thing.
But again, like if it's print,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it seems like there's some utility in having some text.
I'm trying to take notes here and I've got to send Dylan a paragraph on,
Oh, on topic, a topic of interest that we feel like there needs to
any
be,
topic
that the
of
group
interest.
feels like there
Oh,
needs to
thank
be
you.
education on.
Electrical landscaping.
Yeah.
Would be a useful thing.
And on that one, it's still living in the back of my mind. You sent out a website about, LO did a really nice, I don't know if it's a print newsletter and or website about electrification. And
Uh-huh.
I do feel like that's the next step with, gas leak blower reduction or something. I think that was one of the council goals for SAB. It does feel like that's the first step is education. It's been living in the back of my mind, somehow trying to find a way to find the time
Yeah.
to do some similar.
what do you want to wordsmith a paragraph? I'd be happy to do that.
Well, I think Tiffany and I are,
Oh, you can do that? Okay.
Yeah.
That's Greg and Tiffany. Okay.
Greg, do we know how many people in West Linn actually use gas-powered yard appliances, or is that strictly, because I don't know anybody in my neighborhood that uses gas-powered anything aside from the people that come and do lawn service.
my neighbor does. But I don't know whether anybody has captured that information or not.
I feel like that'd be kind of hard to quantify.
Yeah, it would be
And
hard to.
I will say anecdotally, we get a decent amount of complaints about the noise. But I don't have any solid data.
Yeah.
My neighbor has a gas-powered leaf vacuum.
Not
No
heard of
kidding.
that.
No kidding.
Leaf vacuum.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know.
I have an
Interesting.
electric one of those that my son gave me. It grinds them up. It goes into a bag.
Yeah, give it to
Right.
her. Whatever. That was big news. Last one, Dylan?
That's all,
That was that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the, wait a minute, what happened to the?
And with regard to the social media
Okay.
accounts, because I know that that's something that Tiffany's especially interested in, would it make sense to have a conversation with the folks in communication, or is that where you're kind of waiting?
that's what we're waiting on.
Waiting.
They asked to wait on that discussion. I specifically asked that question. Yeah.
Good.
Okay. Thank you for the update. I think we can break for dinner.
Break for dinner?
All right, meeting broken.
So we'll resume in 20 minutes. Does that make sense?
Like, give me time to finish coughing.
Make it 25.
25 minutes.
Okay, fair enough. See you in
So we'll
25.
regroup at 6:20.
All right,
Okay,
sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Is the pear sauce
I
Odd.
am sorry. Ugh. Mike, I'm sorry, I forgot to write down that I was supposed to bring the butter. I don't know.
not to worry?
I don't know. But there was so much that
Um,
oh my God, I'm just so overwhelmed with the garden.
So Dylan,
hold on.
sure.
All
I
right.
don't know,
Need
it's gonna
more
benefit
paper.
that live streaming.
Sirens are heard in the distance.
Yeah, I just don't know if it's gonna restart. I'm worried
Ah.
about it.
Oh, should we just leave it? They can watch us eat, whatever. Thank you, Dylan, for escaping.